Ladies and gentlemen, our next contest this evening is 4 3-minute rounds in the light welterweight division. Firstly, please welcome, wearing the white shorts, weighing in 10 stone, 5 pounds and 12 ounces, fighting out of the red corner from East Ham. Please welcome Johnny Greaves. And across the ring is a young man who was the son of a long-reigning former WBO World Featherweight Champion, Steve Robinson, who is in his son's corner as he makes his second professional start this evening, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing the black shorts, weighing in 10 stone, 2 pounds. Please welcome from Cardiff, Wales, the undefeated Francis Robinson. Your referee in charge of the action is Richard Davies of Shoreditch, London, who will now give his final instructions to both boxers. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 3-minute rounds.
Referee Richard Davies gives his final instructions to our two boxers this evening, Francis Robinson and Johnny Greaves. Debut for Francis Robinson.
First round.
But he's got boxing in the blood. His father, Steve Robinson, a long-time featherweight world champion. A decade or so ago, his famous fight against Nazim Hamed, and he's in his son's corner this evening. There's a wealth of experience for young Francis Robinson, who's on debut this evening. He's in the black shorts. Johnny Greaves hasn't got many wins under his belt, but he's always a tryer, always comes to give it a go. He's in the white, I'm delighted to say. As ever, I'm joined ringside by Colin Hart. Good evening, Colin.
Good evening, Ian. This brings back memories to me when I see Stevie Robinson in the corner. I was up in Sunderland when he won the world title against John Davison, and they pulled him out the Debenhams warehouse where he was working, 2 days' notice, and he went up and won the title. And the rest, as they say, is history. It makes me feel older than ever when I see the sons of the fellas I used to cover.
Well, it's a fantastic story, the Steve Robinson story, isn't it? It's a little bit before my time, but I was looking at his record during the week when doing some research for the for Francis's fight, and he was a journeyman, wasn't he? He had a real shaky record, and then he comes from nowhere, and then had all these. You know, it wasn't just one world title win; it was 7 or 8.
Well, Robinson was one of those fighters that was called on always at the last minute and was always in shape. But as you say, you looked at his record as we did. It was 13 wins and 9 defeats, and we thought, what the hell's going on here? You know, world championship. And of course, and he was the modern Cinderella man.
And he had that big fight with Nazim Hamed, didn't he, in Cardiff?
That's when he lost the title, yeah.
And Hamed was a step too far from it.
And a step too far for most people except Pereira.
A real quality fighter. Francis Robinson, a little bit heavier than his dad.
Yeah, I was speaking to Steve only the other day about how about his boy, and I said, did you go in the ring with him and spar? He said, oh yeah. He said, I'm usually on the pads. He said, but he hits a lot harder than me.
We weighed in just over 10 stone for this one. The fight made at light welter. You say Johnny Greaves, very, very experienced. A regular on Frank Warren's undercards. Regular opponent.
Facially, he looks very much like his father, young Lewis.
Well, they're almost like spitting image, aren't they, of each other? See if he's got his father's talent as well. He's a decent enough amateur. He's still pretty young as well, early 20s.
I think he's only 20, isn't he?
Yep. And making his pro debut this evening. This magnificent O2 Arena, which is pretty much empty at the moment, but when James DeGale and George Groves step into the ring later on this evening,
well,
there'll be many spare seats. Colin.
I'll say this is a tea time fight. I mean, young Robinson, obviously, even though the place is not only a handful of people in this 20,000-seater arena, he must have had the butterflies in his stomach making his pro debut in such a big arena. And as I say, I think he won that round, but not by a wide margin, feeling his way in his first fight, only over 4 rounds. And his father, of course, was quite a good defensive fighter. He wasn't what one call a two-handed banger by any means.
We'll get some pictures from the corner here. Francis Robinson looks relatively relaxed.
Well, of course, if he has a father and son relationship from Wales that Enzo and Joe Calzaghe had, Wales have got themselves another superhero in the making.
There's been a few father and son combinations, hasn't there, from Wales? You've got Vince Cleverley and Nathan Cleverley as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's and of course, around the world. I mean, the Mosleys, Shane Mosley's father was his trainer and cornerman. You could go on and on and on. There's been quite a lot of them.
Talking to Richie Woodall earlier. He's another one who was trained by his father, wasn't he, Len?
Yes, he was.
Relatively quiet opening round for Francis Robinson. Did enough to win it, I think. Doesn't.
Well, of course, Greaves has been around the block a few times, hasn't he?
Yeah, going backwards at the moment in defence. Proving hard to hit cleanly. Frank Warren is hoping to sort of reignite Welsh boxing. It was on a real high a few years ago, wasn't it, Colin, with Gavin Rees and McInerney and, of course, Joe Calzaghe.
And, of course, before that we had Colin Jones going back some years. I mean, that, you know, let's face it, it's been a hotbed of boxing ever since boxing began. Howard Winston, they've had some terrific fighters in Wales. Jimmy Wilde, you go back, Tommy Farr, you know, Jim Driscoll. The list is endless. They're terrific fighters from that part of the world.
I don't think Frank's not done a show in Wales since, I think, a couple of weeks before Calzaghe fought Bernard Hopkins in Vegas, so more than 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, now with hopefully Cleverley will come through his first defence of the title he won outside the ring through no fault of his own. I mean, he will, you know, be topping the bill in Wales. I don't think, has he ever fought in Wales?
He would have fought on a couple of Calzaghe undercards at the Millennium.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
But he certainly never had a title fight in Wales.
He's never topped the bill in Wales.
No,
that's
he
for sure.
won the title up in Liverpool. What was that? The Commonwealth title 2.5 years ago, I think. And since then, he's been on the road. He's fought in London. He fought in Birmingham. He had a fight or two in. He had one in Vegas. So he's due a homecoming. And guys like Francis Robinson. We've already seen Lewis Rees in action this evening as well. Young boxer on Frank Warren's books, Craig Evans. He could star too on a all Welsh bill in Cardiff or Newport. Enzo McInerney still knocking around as well. This is better here from Robinson. Having a bit more lively in this round, Colin.
Yeah, he's just about beginning to work Greaves out, who's obviously in there to try and last 4 rounds. Negative fighter. Not easy to get through people who are only there to survive. But he's getting through now. I'll tell you what, he looks the part, doesn't he?
He does.
Young Robinson.
Looks in great nick.
Beautiful shape. Well, that, of course, was his father's forte. Although he was considered, before he won the world title, a journeyman, he was a journeyman who was always in peak condition. I mean, he didn't have to make the weight when he got called at that last minute to fight for the world title. He was down to the weight almost immediately.
So again, we're just looking at some pictures here of Francis Robinson in the corner.
Looks cool, doesn't he?
Yep. See Johnny Greaves as well. Some punch stats here as well. Don't always tell the truth, but those do that Robinson's been well on top.
Corner 10 seconds. Seconds out, round 3.
So, into the second half of the fight here. This one scheduled for 4 rounds. I've had 2 already. I think Robinson comfortably winning them both.
Solid right, he landed there.
Yeah, it was a nice looking shot, wasn't it, Colin? Nice to hear the echo of every punch landed. The arena's maybe a couple of hundred people in here. I think it holds 20,000 people. It's virtually a home fight for Johnny Greaves. Hails from East Ham,
Yep, just across the river.
so not very far away. I don't think he's built many fans though. It's his 65th fight this evening. Only the 3 wins.
Well, I think
Pays the bills, I guess, Coach.
yeah, it does, but he's not going to win this one either. But then he'd be shocked if he did.
I tell you, when the bell goes, he'll raise his hand as if he has won it. I can assure you
That's
of
the
that.
oldest pro trick in the business, isn't it?
He's just like to raise a few smiles, Johnny Greaves. Bit of a character.
I would say he's one of those guys, and many of them never gets hurt.
Putting a little Ali shuffle there as well. Look at these journeymen, Colin. You sometimes wonder if they had the right breaks or the right promoter. Maybe not in Johnny Greaves'
Well,
case.
they're not ambitious, are they? They know their limitations. The good ones, good journeymen, they know their limitations, and they know they can earn a nice living on the side of whatever they do, whatever job they've got. As you say, pays the bills, takes them away on a foreign holiday, and maybe buys them a decent motor car. Don't get hurt, enjoy it, keeps them fit. There's all sorts of reasons.
10 seconds left of this 3rd round. I think it's another one safely in the bag for.
But there'll never be another Peter Buckley, will there? More than 300 fights.
There's one guy who did know how to look after himself. Still see him out and about sometimes, don't we, Colin? At the
He was working in the corner,
Yeah,
wasn't he?
in
The
the-
last show we did. Where was that? Your call.
Your call, probably.
Yeah, your call, wasn't it?
Yep, seen him in the corner now and again, passing on all that knowledge he built up over the years.
Extraordinary. You can tell a lot of stories about Peter. The night, I've said this before, but it's still worth telling again. The night that Mickey Duff in London called Nobby Nobbs, his manager, at 8 o'clock in the evening and said, "We need him for in 3.5 hours at the Hilton Hotel." And Nobby went round to his house and he just grabbed his bag, went in the car, travelled down to London, boxed 8 rounds, lost on points, didn't get hurt, back in the car, slept all the way back to Birmingham and was at work 8:30 the next day. I mean, that was Peter Buckley. And he wasn't alone in that situation either.
One of boxing's real characters. He's been very quite correct, hasn't he, Francis Robinson? Quite controlled.
Yeah,
Really-
he takes after his father. His father was not flamboyant in the slightest, got the job done. But of course, Robinson is senior. After he won the world title, of course, he gave up his job in Debenhams and became a full-time fighter, and that made the difference. Now, obviously, young Robinson is going to be a full-time fighter, I'm sure. Still, not a bad one to start off with for him against Greaves. He's taken him to 4 rounds, which is what he'll need. He'll need rounds. Much better than getting someone over with in the first round.
Yeah, it looks a good kind of learning experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I presume Steve will be picking the matches for him.
Doesn't seem to waste too many punches either. Quite precise and accurate. Doesn't look a huge banger, does he?
No. Well, I think the boys enjoyed his first pro fight. Not had to worry too much about getting beaten.
Let's look at his legs actually, Colin. He's got the legs of a boxer, hasn't he? Very, very thin.
Well, he's a very athletic looking kid. He's obviously an athlete. He probably loves training, I'm sure. Well, you should at 20. If you don't, you might as well pack it in.
Well, if you don't love it
straight
at
away.
20, you're not going to love it at 30, are you?
Exactly. I don't know if you know, but Robinson Senior won that world title 19 years ago.
Is that long ago?
Yeah. So Steve, you know, his son was probably a babe. I don't know where his birthday is, but it's probably about 3 or 4 months old. So
I remember I watched the Hamed fight when I was still at school. I think as the bell goes for the end of the fight. Comfortable win for Francis Robinson on debut.
yeah, no surprise in that. 40-36.
Very surprised if it was otherwise. Referee Richie Davies will score this one. He certainly scored it 4 rounds to none to Francis Robinson here from our ringside position. We're going to get confirmation of the result from our MC, Mark Burdiss, in just a second or two. Look at the punch stats there, and Robinson, the harder worker, landed more punches as well. Just a slight hold up with TV. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, your referee Richard Davies scores a contest 40 points to 36. The winner in the blue corner from Cardiff, Francis Robinson. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the gallant Johnny Greaves.
So on debut, Francis Robinson makes it his first win, a comfortable 40-36 points victory over Johnny Greaves here at the O2 Arena in London.